and welcome to this episode 200 of Frame and Reference. You're about to drop into a conversation between me, Kenny McMillan, and my guest Sing Yam, DP of the Threesome. Enjoy.
Title is a little misleading, which is kind of like strategic in a sense. Because I mean, I remember when I first got the script, I was like, I had my preconceived notions of what it was going to be. Yeah. And then I read it and I was like, oh, okay, that's not what I expected at all. Which kind of drew me to it, actually.
It's a fun, it's messy in a fun way.
Yes.
But also it has a lot of heart. It's very, I like it.
It really very, very grounded characters. Like you feel like, I don't know how old you are, but just like
35.
Yeah. So I'm like 39. I'm able to like, I've gone through relationship. I'm like, okay, I can relate to a lot of these people, like in what they're going through. Like there's a version of something that's happened here that's happened to me.
Yeah. Minus the incident, I gotta say.
Yeah.
I even went to Arizona State and no sale. Dude, how'd you guys get Jabuki?
That was, Chad just went through casting, and Jabuki actually talked about in some interviews about like what attracted him to the script, because he, a lot of, I feel like a lot of rom-coms will have like, the gay best friend trope, but usually the gay best friend to the female
right
role. And he like, this is actually the first script where I written where I'm like the gay best friend to the straight male lead. That like I was like what attracted him. He also just said the same thing, just like the script, I think a lot of modern day rom-coms kind of have like a perfect bow tie ending. It's like somewhat bubblegum in a sense. And he just felt like this is more grounded. Like I don't feel like a caricature as much. So I think that's what attracted him to it. Jabuki's great though. Like
I've loved him ever since he popped up on my radar because of I had seen stand-up clips. I produce a stand-up show, so like I'm kind of checked in there, but obviously it was the Daily Show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, dude, he steals some of these scenes too. Just like his timing. He makes some of those edits so fun. Which I gotta shout out the editor Autumn Dia. I think like as she really like made that like the pacing of the film. I remember when I saw the first cut, I was like, whoa, I'm like this like moves at a great pace. I feel bad. She's not getting the shine she should be getting because her work is great. The editing of that film's really good.
Why? What do you mean?
Just like all the reviews and stuff, like no one's like mentioning her editing, and I'm like, dude, like she set such a good pace. Like that's so hard to do, and she nailed it.
I think. I mean, you probably know this as a DP. Like when you're not mentioned, it usually means you did a great job.
Yeah.
People don't 100%. Think about it. If you're in that 100%. Middle, like 30 to 40%, like no one talks. It's either the cinematography's dog shit or it's so intense that like everyone has to point it out.
I mean, Deegan talks about all the time. He's like, like you shouldn't be noticing the photography. And what the new Cinematographer's book, like the first quote from like Harris Savitas says, like people don't go to movies for beautiful photography. Like they go for story. So like we need to serve that. But yeah, it does suck when you hear like people are like, oh, the photography was great in the movie, but the movie was like, oh, it's like I didn't do my job then, like in a sense. Like
yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've been handed a script that you're like, I mean, I'll do it.
Yeah. We've had those. I think we've all had those moments, but you learn and you learn.
You go, you know what? That's gonna look great in my reel.
Yeah.
Although nowadays I feel like reels are. I feel like at a certain point, no one ever looks at a reel anymore. They just look at your website and they go, oh, like yours is, you go through the commercials and it's like Louis Vuitton, like Levi's, McDonald's. You go, all right, we can trust them. We don't need to. The stills look fine.
Yeah, I remember the last reel I did was probably like 2012. And like, I remember my mentor telling me, he's like, don't put any shot in there that you have a problem with. And I was like, oh, I can pick apart every fucking shot I've done. And I was like, and I hate the process of cutting your own work too. It's like, I mean, I almost threw my computer out the window like multiple times trying to cut my reel. It gets such a laborious like thing for me. So I'm like glad I don't have to do that anymore.
I used to update mine every year, and I had like one timeline that I would just revisit. But then
Mhm.
I would like, need to upgrade my storage, or I'd get a new computer or something like that. So then everything moves around. And when you just see all those red, like disconnected clips, you're
Yeah.
just like, I don't want to do it anymore. I,
Yeah. Sure. You just like know you're in for the long haul. If you're like, if I'm going to attack this, it's going to be a lot of work.
yeah. Did you? I did want to ask because Ernie got us in touch. Ernie Gilbert, great editor, great director. Did you meet him through what was it, 9 minutes?
No, so Ernie and I came across each other. Funny enough, because I went to school in North Carolina,
Mm.
and he's from Greensboro, but we actually never like linked. It's funny, like Ernie and I were just hanging out a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about because like so when he was coming up, like when I graduated from film school, I was like back in Virginia shooting a bunch of metal videos, and he was
Oh
like
yeah.
doing the same thing. And it's like it's interesting that him and I never crossed paths until we came out to LA. The way him and I met was I was shooting like a bunch of shorts for directors that he was like AEing for. And he just saw the work I was doing and then like reached out and then we just connected from there. But yeah, 9 minutes was the first short that him and I did together. That was a crazy shoot. That was the same shoot actually.
Was it?
Well, just like we were shooting at this place called Trona Pinnacle. It's like on like the hottest day of the year, like clocking at like 117 degrees. Like we're shooting like on 35 anamorphic and like people were like my AC had to go to the hospital because it was getting dehydration. It was like
Jeez.
insane. Like I remember this is a crazy story actually. I remember my AC, he's like a brother from another mother. His name's Matt Cadino. We went to school together. He like comes up to me, he's like, "Hey man, we gotta reshoot the last shot." I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "So when I went to go reload the camera, the pressure. We were shooting on XL2 Panavision, and he's like, the pressure plate's not in there. I was like, what? Because we were having this issue too. Like, it was so hot that we had to pull the pressure plate out. Because basically, what was happening, the heat was making the metal of the pressure plate and the film expand, so we couldn't slide it in. We had to pull the pressure plate out, slide the film in, and then like put the pressure plate back over it.
Mm.
So through the heat and just like exhaustion, he didn't know where it was. It like we forgot to put it back in. He's like, dude, I have no clue like if it's like going to stay flat. Like it could be just out of focus. So I was like, okay. So for like 30 minutes, we're just like running around trying to find the pressure plate. And like Toronto Pinnacles is all thin. It's just like this is pretty much just a lost cause. And then like 100, I'm like somewhere, I'm like looking somewhere else, and then like 100 yards away, I just see my AC be like, his hand like goes up in the air. He's like, found it. And I'm like, holy shit. People like, we're like 4 hours from LA. So like getting another camera to us is just not going to happen.
Right.
And yeah, and then we redid the shot. Funny enough, the shot came through. The one that didn't have the pressure plate came in fine, but that was a really crazy experience. I think kind of traumatized starting from shooting film again, to be honest, unfortunately.
Well, that's all that always comes up is like the folks who can't, because you've shot a ton of film, probably mostly in ads, right?
Ads, yeah, like shorts and stuff like that, and music videos. I haven't done a
Yeah.
feature on film yet.
It does. Everyone who, like all the old heads that I've interviewed that came up on film and didn't hit digital till they were in their like 40s or whatever. It's always like you're either in the sort of Deacon's camp of like, yeah, I would never want to shoot film again because it's terrifying and stressful and I lose years off my life. And then there's people who are just like, I could never touch digital. It's not real, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I think as I've gotten older and just shooting more, I'm like the way my like philosophy with film is like I just done a lot of jobs where like there's too much vanity placed on the idea of shooting film,
Mm.
and like we start sacrificing other things. Like I remember there was this music video that where that we were gearing up to shoot, and it was supposed to be like a period piece too, or like 70s period. And I remember the director was like, he's like, dude, we'll just like pull from our department so we have enough money for stock. And I was like, dude, I think that's the wrong call.
Yeah.
Because like people are going to notice when we don't have period things in our period music video over film stock. Like that's going to hurt us more. And that's what I mean by the vanity of being like, I mean, so many people are like, want to get that Kodak shoot film, like repost. I'm like, sure, but I'm like, you're missing the point here. Like, are we
shooting this for Instagram?
Yeah, well, just like, let's think about what we're trying to serve here first. Like, we're trying to tell a story. We're trying to, like, my mom's not going to know the difference between film versus digital, but she's going to be like, why is there a 2004 like Prius in the shot right now in the background? You know what I mean? Like, they're going to notice things like, oh, you kind of like missed the mark there. So I think I very much, when it comes to shooting film, like, listening, I was like, I'm down to do it as long as we have the means to do it. We're not sacrificing other departments just to shoot on film. Um, that's a conversation I have to have a lot of people. And like some directors are like, really? Like you're a DP that like isn't jumping up and down when I offer film? Like I was like, let's make sure it's the right reason or give me a good reason for it. So that's kind of where I stand on now. I'm like, I agree with Deacons, man. Like I'm up for a feature right now, talking about film and like, director asked me the question, like, how do you feel? I was like, looking, I was like, I am going to be more stressed out. Like, I know, like, that's just inherently what comes with it. And feels like, oh, I'll take that stress with you. I'm like, you don't really understand what that stress is. I was like, the last thing I want to do is get a call from the lab. Like, I remember I did a Cinematographer music video. We were shooting on 16. It was for Broken Clocks. And I remember, like, it was 2 days shoot. And the first night, at like 2 in the morning, I get a call from the lab. They're like, so part of one roll fell off the spool and ripped it. And I was like, how many feet? And they're like, 200 feet is destroyed. And I was like, fuck me. You know what I mean? It's like the worst thing I want to get 2 in the morning. Like, I gotta go deliver that information. So like it's and like all productions, like we're gonna have to reshoot this part. So yeah, it's like that was one of the worst phone calls I've ever gotten with that. And I just remember that moment like, we should just really I was like that's a nightmare. But yeah, I think it's but it's changed a lot. I think, honestly film has a resurgence right now, which is huge. But yeah.
Yeah, so, I was at the Kodak Awards. I've been invited to the Kodak Awards the past like 3-4 years. And it's great because like everyone's there. It's like the vibe is great. You get to meet all these cool people and whatnot. But there is kind of like a cultiness around it, which I honestly enjoy. But there is like a cultiness around it of like, speaking of comedian, I always think of my buddy Dave Gabori, who's like, or Dave Borey. He has got a G in the front of his name. But anyway, he makes a joke about like, Joe Rogan or whoever being like, we're the modern day philosophers. And it does feel a little bit like that with film, where they're like, we're the true filmmakers. We're making actual celluloid. And I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not the right option. Do I love it? Yes, I love film. But, digital is so good now that it's not like not shooting film doesn't make your stuff look bad like it used to in the early 2000s.
It's funny, like the Threesome, like the director originally wanted to shoot film, but like we're in the middle of Little Rock, Arkansas. Yeah, and like, well, the first thing, like the budget just couldn't suffice to shoot film, but also like the amount of work it would take to be able to shoot film in Little Rock, like just sending our film back to get daily is like,
you're getting
probably exactly, it would be weeklies on that. But it's just also the infrastructure, just like, do we have a crew that's ready to handle that? Like, my like my loader there, like actually not loader, yeah, just the DIT, but like, like you gotta find a loader that knows how to handle film, all these things, like, is it worth that right now? All that stress and this like amount of work we have to do to make that happen. But it's funny enough, I'm pretty proud of what the Threesome looks like. I thought we did a pretty good job trying to emulate like a more filmic look on it.
That was something that was literally like my first note was like, just because like I color a lot, so the halation alone, I was like, all right, I can tell that's not film. It looks really good, but I did want to ask you about the emulation process. Like, was that all in just kind of like bespoke resolve, or were you doing the dehancer move, or like what was the move there?
So this, I gotta give a shout out to my DIT, the Hall of Dan Lurie. So it's funny, my DIT and I, we actually completely took out the dailies colorist and handled it ourselves.
Mm.
Because I just, in the past experience I've had with daily color, it's just like kind of a nightmare. Like the wrong luck goes on, the thing is just like you get a phone call to like, why does it look like this? And it's like it becomes a thing. So we had a talk like when we were doing the post talk with our post producer. I was like, hey, my DIT and I have an idea. So we will handle the dailies. I built my LUT with Mike Hell over Color Collective, and we only had two LUTs. It was basically the same LUT. One was just like a printed up version if we were like in really dark situations. And then because I don't like carrying a lot of LUTs, I feel like I said, based just on my past experiences, like yes, too many LUTs, and that's what happens. Like the wrong one gets put on your dailies, and you're like, okay, now we have to fix all this, and it becomes a debacle. So, but what we were
There's like a
doing
day
was,
one and a night one.
yeah, exactly. And what we ended up doing was at the end of every day, Nahal and I would sit down and go through the day's work, and we were applying film box to all our dailies.
Mm.
So our dailies were coming through with grain and halation. And the main reason I did that is it's funny. I just listened to the Ed Lockman and Roger Deakins like post production podcast, and they were talking about like when if your dailies aren't correct or the way you want them to look and they're sitting in post for months like that, it's real easy for the director to be like, oh, I'm fine with this. And then we get in a color and it's like, I remember dude, like back in like when things were like log feel and Alexa MIDI and like they'd be just looking at that like on music videos. I've had several music videos where they're like, oh, we like the logs like the way it looks. I'm like, that's log C and flat. Like we shouldn't do that. But so I just all like just through my experience of like, okay, we need to like alleviate the situation so I can keep control or like keep the look that we originally set out the intent, like the intention of what our look is actually falling through. Because I feel like a lot of that gets lost in translation at the DIT, which is, now the lab.
Right.
So I'm going to try to continue that from now on. Our post producer ended up liking it a lot because we actually saved, I think, 2 days in color because of that.
Yeah. The my move with like, I guess, corporate clients recently has been to deliver the like early edits in black and white, just so that they don't, not even like good looking black and white. I just mean desaturated.
Yeah.
Just so that they, and I tell them, I go, hey, this is in black and white because that's not what we're focused on. We're only focused on the pacing. We're focused on what these, your clients are saying, whatever. And then we can start thinking about, because they always want to, hey, this is a little over here, but it's like, let's not think about that right now. It's hard to get unknowledgeable people to sit on that. And it's even harder, as you're saying. I was just talking to someone about this the other day. Like, I think Vice, for all the amazing coverage they did, really set the look for so many people where they're like, just dude, ungraded log. That's like the hardcore shit.
Yeah. I do. There was like a short phase that was happening where, I mean, what is that? Like, I feel like, I was doing a lot of music between 2013 and like 2015, and like, it was happening constantly. I was like, oh my God, like, why are we just shooting flat? Like everything just felt like a tonal range of just beige, like for a while. But yeah, I'm glad that era's gone. But now it's like everything's like very step printy looking, like shoot film, don't like step print. So yeah. But I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, did you get your start? No, trust me, I'm my brain's all over the place. You feel free to interrupt me. No one's here to listen to me. Did you get your start like on film, getting these like ads and music videos? Is that what kind of, because I feel like right around now, as you were saying, like film is starting to really see a resurgence. So people are looking back at like, all right, well, who shoots film? And it's like people like you that I think are getting those calls first.
Yeah, I mean, like when I was in film school, well, I went to North Carolina School of the Arts, and I think like 2 years after me is when they switched to digital. But like I was like one of the last classes. Like we shot all like our third and fourth year films were all done on film. Um, so I think like I was definitely like one of that last generation. Like I remember like Ari came to the school to show us the 416 when it was about to come out. But it was like funny, like film kind of died right after the 416 came out, and like the red one like was coming out. Like my first professional job after film school, I was like shooting on like HVX 200 with a Letus adapter. And
Classic.
like, yeah,
Classic.
but it's funny, like I never dealt with one in film school. So like I remember the director was like, "Have you shot with this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I had no fucking clue. I didn't know about the spinning mirror, anything like that."
You
So
needed
I was
about
like,
what, 6 extra stops of light to get through that
yeah,
adapter?
and just like pulling focus on like still lenses, like the rig is insane. Yeah, so it's funny. I remember like, yeah, I mean, I definitely like, earlier on in my career, there would be times where like a film job would come up and I would get called, but like, hey, we know you know how to shoot in film. Funny enough, like, there's that short film that Larkin did called Clapping for the Wrong Reasons with Charles Campino. And Larkin wasn't available for like they had to shoot before that actual intended schedule because some of the artists were only available then. So Jason Ball, the producer, called me. He's like, "Hey man, I know you know how to shoot on film. Can you come do these couple like this day for us? We're shooting on 16." So yeah, it's like interesting. There was like that period where it's just like all digital, and then like film shootings were kind of rare in that time. Um, yeah. So yeah, it's interesting to see how the tables have turned because it's like had such a resurgence. Like, I mean, dude, have you seen the cost of like point and shoot film cameras? They have like skyrocketed. It's insane.
Dude, and
Like,
I see it so much at like I run like college ski trips, and my girlfriend teaches dance, and so she's got a lot of like younger coworkers and stuff, and they all will go spend $25 on a point and shoot just to shoot like a party. And I pulled one of them aside a couple of years ago, and I was like, and it's by far my most read article on Pro Video Coalition. I've done hours of like research on various cameras, sat with them for hours and hours, like writing these very detailed reviews of cinema cameras, whatever it may be, lights. And my most viewed article is something that I literally wrote for my girlfriend's friend, which was basically like, you don't like film, you like on-camera flash. Let's get you a cheap digital point and shoot that'll help. And then I even included, because I was just, I wrote it for my friend. I was like, here's all the digital cameras you should be looking at. If you want to spend money, here's all the point and shoot film cameras, but here's what the lens will change here with blah, blah, blah. And then right after that, yeah, film became, unpurchasable.
yeah, I mean, it's also funny, just like I just think like retro tech. I mean, you look at trends, that's how it kind of works. It's like things 20, 30 years ago, just like coming back up. And I think like vinyl's having like, it's funny, I went home for Christmas and like my little cousin who's like 16 is like getting into vinyl. And it's funny, I was like, okay. I was like, he's like, do you know what vinyl? He's like, do you know what vinyl is? I'm like, yeah. So I got him some records. I gave him some records from my collection. And it's just like, it's interesting how like it's all coming back. Like I went to Tokyo last year for a job, and like I was like going to all the camera shops because I mean that's insane. But like there's now just like they have every camera shop I went to had a case with just like the CCD cameras. There's like huge resurgence of those right now. Like it's just really funny. I remember on the South by what is it? I think like Jenna Ortega or something like popped out her little CCD camera she was like shooting with. And I was like, oh, here we go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I've seen a lot of Canon cyber shots, a lot of cool pixes out in the world. I think, and honestly, I kind of agree with what I believe to be the premise of like kind of the Gen Z resurgence of the point and shoots, which is, very much they want to live in the phone. You and I didn't, maybe it was college when the smartphone came out. And I had a BlackBerry until like my junior year of college or something like that. So that, besides BBM, there was no I actually had to get an iPod Touch because I was working at Red Bull, and Red Bull was one of the very first adopters of Instagram, and so I needed a Instagram account, like for marketing purposes. So I got an iPod Touch, and that it would only work on Wi-Fi, obviously, but that was how I ran my Instagram. Was I'd take photos and then go post them home. But they're so on the phone that they just want to live in the moment for a minute. So the camera being separate from the phone is like I think that's the main reason why they're doing it. And honestly, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I mean, they say that new generation kids are the ones that are trying to disconnect because, we weren't born with like a tablet put in front of us. They were. So, I mean, I remember when I went home, I was playing video games with my cousin, and he had his computer up and was like watching some YouTube videos, and he has iPad doing something else, and then he was FaceTiming with his friend that we were playing with. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to understand the game, and he's like doing all this stuff, and I was like, "Holy shit, dude!" Like the amount of like stuff you're ingesting rapidly is insane. And like I get it. I'm like, dude, like there has to be a moment when like you must have to want to just like slow down for a second. With if that's like what you're constantly doing all day. Also dawned on me like why commercial like are doing all social commercials. I'm like, my little cousin here like doesn't even know what a real commercial is. Like he doesn't even go like I was trying to get him to go to a movie and he was like, how long is the movie? And I was like, I don't know, like 2 hours. He's like, absolutely not. I was like, well, do you want to watch a TV show? He's like, I want a TV show like 30 minutes. He's like, no. I was like, do you watch any TV or anything? He's like, I watch Family Guy. I was like, how do you watch Family Guy? He's like, I watched 3 minute clips of it on TikTok. I was like, what? I was like, okay, that's insane. Like,
you know what?
Yeah.
The fact you bring that up, I remember seeing on TikTok like a clip from a movie came up, and I watched it because it was a movie I like. This is like a couple of years ago, so I don't really remember what it was. But and it said, I'm watching. I was like, haha, that's funny. And then I looked in like at the caption, and it said something like, 4 out of 56, and I was like, what? And then I clicked the profile, and it was the whole movie chopped up into 10-minute chunks because I think at the time 10 minutes. And it made me think like that's such an interesting, because it used to be that money was more valuable than time. And now time is more valuable than money. So if you put 57 chunks of a movie, basically what you're doing is this next 10-minute segment worth it? And then if you get through that and you go, I'm still interested, then you hit the next 10. And I think that's how people, if they hear 2 hours, they're like, but what if I don't like it after 20 minutes, which is obviously not a great way to go through life, but I mean, I think people should be open to experience. Maybe you don't like it. That's fine. You still learn something.
I mean, have you heard about the whole second screen kind of stuff? Like the way, like talking to some writers and they're telling me like some of the notes they get back, they're like, this needs to be more second screen. And I was like, what does that mean? They're like, oh
no.
And I'm sure you're already like starting to get an idea. Have you heard this term?
No, so but I think I know what you're about to say.
It's like, if you're sitting at home and you're on your phone too while you're watching something on Netflix. And I was like, so they're basically just saying to dumb down your stuff so it's enough for them to have it on in the background, but it's not that engaging that they won't like go away from their phone. And I was sitting there, I was like, that is the worst type of note to be giving. And I'm like, it's just is weird that those are notes that are coming from studios.
Well, it's our cocaine isn't pure enough.
Yeah, it is just, it hurts to hear that. And I was like, I don't know, like how. I mean, it's funny. I was talking to Jabuki about that in particular. He was talking about a show he was trying to develop, and he told me about that. I was like, he's like, it made me not want to do it anymore. I'm like, fuck, dude, like, I just, it just goes back to like, we need to have people in control of the studios that actually want to make films.
Yeah. Well, and I hadn't heard second screen, but I had heard from, I'm making this up, I'm just picking names, I don't remember, but it was like a Netflix exec or whoever that was like, hey, the dialogue needs to be more explicit, not like horny, but like, more less nebulous, because their assumption was that people would have this on in the background while they were on the phone doing dishes, whatever it may be. So that's why when people watch movies and go, wow, the exposition is so insane, people walk into a room and go like, I'm entering the room now, how are you, Jason? Because they assume you're not watching, they assume you're just listening, and that's tough. That's
it's,
to come to terms with.
it's a weird way to look at that. It's just like, okay, it's real obvious that you're like, you just care to know that like you're getting the stats that this viewer in this household is on your platform and it's constantly just on. That's all they care about. I mean, like, there was a film I got approached by about a couple of years ago, and like when I was reading it, it was for Hulu, and I was like, oh, like, when I was reading the script, I was like, this seems like this was completely made based off an algorithm that they saw. They're like, okay, it's like hit all these points based on what we're seeing. The stats are coming in. Our viewers want more of this. I was like, you could tell when I was reading the script, I was like, man, like I think I'm not doing it, but I was just like, dude, and like I got other scripts like that too. I'm like, this is not being written by someone. This is being written based on like data that they're getting in.
Right. Well, I do wonder, like, what one moment for me when I was much younger, in my teens, I mentioned it before, but like realizing that not every movie was made for me. I think again, I've said it before, but I'm pretty sure it was Twilight, and I was like, this sucks, blah blah blah, and my friend was like, well, it's just not made for you. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, every movie needs to be objectively good across the board. And she was like, nah, it's just not made for you. And I was like, oh, and that took a while to like internalize. But I wasn't thinking about art at the time. But I do wonder if there's like somewhere in the middle where I guess it's the audio book. But but I'm wondering, like, maybe it's not the algorithmically driven thing, but what if there is like we can't control audience taste, but what if there is like an audience who's like, no, I would rather listen. It's the audiobook. I think we just need to push those people to audiobooks.
Yeah.
Because why take all the effort? Like, really well done, like multicast, like audiobooks. And then maybe the video is just them like reading it around it, like a table read.
Yeah. We just need people to we need people to like have to like focus a little more and just slow down in a sense. Like, yeah. I don't know. Well, I think, I think
it's like, how do we solve that as filmmakers, right? Like, all right, we have a campaign, like, everyone slow down.
But I mean, I think we're talking about like how kids are trying to disconnect. I think you'll naturally swing that way. I think it's like one of those things, like once the pendulum is swung so far out of the way, it has to kind of like level back out. 100%. And I think it'll just take time. But I think, kids, I mean, we were all young at one time. We don't like to be told what to do or forced. Like, and they just going to have to kind of come to it on their own. And like, we're seeing that happen, so it's funny, like I said, like in like a 2-year difference, like I went home for the past 2 Christmases, and like it's my younger cousin is now like getting in the theater and acting, and he's like starting to watch films now. And before, I remember he wouldn't like dare watch anything with me, but now he's like asking me, he's like, hey, like I watched this film, do you know it? I'm like, oh yeah. I was like, dude, let me send you some other films. So they said, I think they kind of just need to fall into it themselves. I think trying to like, no one like, because it's funny, I'm like, they're looking at me like the old guy now, like, whatever, he's old, like I don't need to listen to him. So I just gotta wait for him to be like, hey, have you heard of this? I'm like, yeah, actually I grew up on that. So yeah, it's just time. I think we kind of gotta let them get to it on their own.
Well, and it reminds me of kind of the death of radio. Like, my car is old as shit. It's an '04, so I just have radio and a CD drive, but I don't have any CDs. I got records. And but when I say the death of radio, I really mean the death of the DJ, right? The curator who personally would curate. When I grew up in the Bay Area, and there was a lot of local radio stations that would personally curate the songs, and I learned a lot. That very sort of, I guess, aggressively shaped my musical tastes. In the punk rock, metal, whatever rock scene, and even the hip hop scene. And now you don't have that. And there's no such thing, maybe the Criterion streaming is very good at curating, but obviously any of the other ones are just putting everything on there.
Yeah.
It's an advertising platform essentially. So I think that is kind of the future of at least that element, is having your close friends be your curator. You're your
Exactly.
cousin's curator and stuff. And I think that'll actually be cool, because then you get to show them stuff that they probably haven't heard of. Maybe you've got, I've got all these Blu-rays where I'm like, have you heard of Tammy and the T-Rex?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, what's that? I'm like, well, first, do you have a PlayStation? All right, you can play it. All right, here you go.
Well, it's funny, like my cousin brought, he's like, dude, you ever heard of Nirvana? I was like, yeah. And I was like,
yeah.
Actually, I'll give you all their albums. I have them all. Here you go. Start with this song. And it's funny. It's just like, it's opened the door. I quite enjoy like helping, like, yeah, like you said, curator to show him a little bit. It kind of reminded me of that scene in Those Are Almost Famous when she leaves records for him. What I mean? It's like the same kind of feeling. So it's cool. But yeah, it's I'm trying to get him more into film. He's like starting to do it. So, but yeah, he's like, this is a 2 hour film. I'm like, look, dude, just you'll enjoy it. Just take the time, you'll enjoy it.
Well, and I think the hardest barrier for anyone like that is black and white.
Oh my God.
Like, dude, if you can find like 3 black and white films that read super modern, it knocks down the door for quote unquote old movies. I think an 18-year-old could watch like Double Indemnity and get very stoked on it, because it's a horny ass film. And I think it's very. I think people think black and white and they think Wizard of Oz, which is very theatrical, and they don't know that there's all these like little corner, like sort of edgier films in that same era that aren't as not romantic, but just flowery, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, dude, real shit. So much film noir was in black and white. I mean,
Yeah.
So like, it's funny. Like, it's funny you bring up the black and white. It's just a lot of people just associate old with black and white for some reason, and like the amount of things I've tried to shoot in black and white, and if that's literally, I'm told you, like the kids won't like that because they think it'll be old. I'm like your reasoning not strong enough by just saying that. I was like, Ed Lockman did Alconde, black and white, it's gorgeous, and like,
the Suit and Tie music video is gorgeous. Yeah, granted that's Fincher and shit, but like,
but it's like there's something about black and white that's actually just like very timeless, which I love about it. Like, and I think like, depending on like what you're using it for, there's something keeping up black and white is like you're working in contrast. Like, I feel like if you want to do something super graphic, black and white's a really good way to go.
Yeah. Like, I personally love black and white. Like, I'm always waiting for someone to be like, can we just? I'm waiting for the project where that's the move, because I absolutely adore it.
I have a funny story about it. So I remember I did this movie called World's Best for Disney, and the opening scene of that movie, like I was like, my look reference was JFK. And I was like, so like super hot top light, just like really, just a lot of blooming. And I remember I had the DIT switch all the monitors to black and white to the monitor in that way. I remember the Disney side was like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Don't worry, it's not black and white." She was like, "It better not be." I was like, "But I'm like trying to see." I was like,
"You're like, I physically can't."
I was testing the waters. I was like, maybe. I turned this on, and you guys were like, "Oh, that looks cool," and they're like, "No." I was like, "All right, well, let's worth a shot." But yeah, I was like trying to get a little sneaky there, but it did not work out in my favor. Got like called out in like the first 30 seconds. The monitors turned up like that.
I used to, before I had like a spot meter and before false color came out, I would always monitor in black and white to get my contrast ratios looking good, and then I would flip it back to color and then adjust the like color temp if I was able. That's always a good move. Actually, speaking of black and white, I was watching the Threesome. I felt like, you tell me if this is true or not, but it's something that I always try to do. I feel like everyone does it. Wanted to ask you. Obviously, Chris Nolan's following, right? The first whatever it is, 15-20 minutes, he like put all his budget into it to make it look really, really like primo, and then he was got away with the rest of it. Was that kind of the move here? Because the first like 3-4 scenes of this film are just lush. You know, there's light everywhere. It looks very romantic. And then the rest of it is like, it still looks great, but it's like a little more traditional. Was that intentional, or was that just because the opening scenes are supposed to be a little more like romantic and gloomy and stuff?
I think, like, we were trying to still pay homage to like the rom-com like genre. So like, the traditional opening of a wedding. Like I'll say like this movie is probably the softest movie I've done. Like when I say soft, like softest black point I've ever had.
Right.
And that was definitely like a challenge. But I think like, the opening, we were trying to pay homage to that genre. So there was like a lot of light there. But I think it's also part of the location was that too. Like I think overall the film,
that top light.
Yeah. Like Bob Ridgely was a big influence on me as I was
I wrote it down. The fucking when he's talking with that first girl initially, that hot table light. I was like, yeah, buddy.
Yeah, so that's always been like like I said, it's like the Disney movie of like trying to emulate JFK. So I've taken a lot of influence from him, but I don't think that was like on set goal, but I think just inherently thinking of like how we can pay homage to that. So I think that scene kind of just lent itself to that a little bit. Like I said, the location too. And like the wardrobe, just like a lot of white in there, and it was like all the flowers. I think my big thing too is like I just really wanted to help Clarissa, our production designer, show her work. I think I've done a lot of jobs where, or I used to when I was a camera assistant, I'd work with some DP that really just liked the production designer, which I found kind of weird. Is
dislike
or fight the production designer a lot, or just like kind of work in tandem with them. And I'm like, man, we're like two peas in a pod. Like we kind of need
production designer makes you look good.
Exactly. They give me a world to shoot. So I've always been really conscious of that and trying to make sure I show the work that they're doing. Right. Because, I think, because I've always heard Spielberg trying to like, really? Like, you ended up shooting tight for this whole scene when I designed this whole world? Like, okay, great. So I think that was part of it. Yeah, I think that day was really difficult, though. The opening in that movie was very hard because
we had to shoot a lot of moving pieces.
We had to shoot that all in one day. And there's actually a lot more to that scene that's not in the cut. And it was terribly cold. It was like that place wasn't insulated that we were shooting at. So like trying to make everyone look cheery and happy was not easy. Especially after like hour 10 and people are like shivering, okay, don't look like you're cold, guys. That was a daunting scene. That was not easy.
There was a lot of obviously it's not all over the film, but certainly in the beginning there's a lot of like gimbal work or dolly work even. And I saw the build on that Ronin 2. You got what, an Alexa Mini with that big
35 Alexa
35 with the Primo zoom. And I literally just last weekend just had a C70 with a relatively small anamorphic on the front on a Ronin 4. And I was not confident in it. So can you explain to me, like, how do you build out? This is such a basic ass question. I just never use gimbals. But like, how do you get the gimbal to handle that much weight?
So I don't use I own that Ronin and like I have a set of Noto wheels, and like I use it more like a remote head than anything. I don't like carry it like in it's like the ring or whatever they call it. I don't like do that much. I just use it as kind of like a remote head.
Sure.
So yeah, I think for that, I mean, we were definitely pushing it. Like I had to send my Ronin in after that movie actually because the yoke was a little like I think we had the 27 to 75 Primo. And like we were pushing it to the limit. But I didn't know the feature prior to that, and that's where we kind of figured it out. I think the biggest thing is like kind of need to make sure you have all the right tools to it, and making sure you have someone that knows how to run the gimbal really well. Both my AC and my operator, Jim Lee, he's also had the Ronin himself, so he knew it very well. So it helped. I mean, we were pushing it to the limit, that's for sure. Like it's like that thing was cranked out. Like we were right at the mat. We were at the tipping point of it. I mean,
A lot of
part of like,
counterbalances, I guess.
yeah, a lot of counterbalances. It was also just like, I shoot a lot of Venice too, as well. And part of the reason there was multiple reasons why I went to Lexus 35, but just a little bit of a smaller form factor. It is lighter than a Venice, but I do Venice on that as well. But like I knew I wanted to use it like a little bit of a more compact Xenon. Um, so I knew and then there was more the problem with that is it's just distributing the weight, and you only have so much you can extend the Ronin out for its like
Right.
center balance. So like you'll just finding that sweet spot. And like, you want to avoid, I think the biggest thing too, we had two bodies. I ran it more like a single camera show, pretty much. Um, so one camera kind of lived in that setup, which really helped. I think if you have one camera body and you're trying to go back and forth, it's really problematic. You're going to waste a lot of time with that. So that was probably the biggest benefit. But yeah, I think like I said, I use it mainly a remote head. So like I think that helps it a lot too. Like, it's not like being really thrashed around too hard, like on something or like running really hard. Um yeah, that's probably something that helps. I think if we were like putting it on like, something like a black arm doing like a bunch of crazy driving shots, it would have probably really destroyed the thing.
Snapped it in half, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
we were pretty ginger with it, so that helped.
Gotcha. All that gives me confidence then, because I was like, am I about to break? Because I borrowed it from my gaffer, and I was like, am I gonna break this fucking thing just carrying it? Like it, but I also again had never used one, so I'm sitting there going like, just absolutely every millimeter on the back and the side. I didn't have any.
You kind of need to have all the right accessories for it. Like me and my AC sat down. And like I said, I did a film prior to that where we got all the bits and kind of figured it out. So that helped a lot. I think if that was like a straight out the box, like run into, we would have probably not been able to pull it off. Like I did a bunch of research, talked to a lot of gimbal techs and like get this, and this, and it'll help it a lot. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for helping me with that. That's just for me personal. I did want to ask like about the lighting in general, aside from like the opening, like wedding and the bar scenes and stuff, a lot of it is either outdoors and a lot of car rigs and stuff. I was wondering kind of what were you doing? I assume this wasn't super high budget. What were some of the things you were doing to kind of plus up, make sure that it had a higher budget look than what you had?
It's fun. I think I had to play scheduling with our gear was really important. Because it's funny. We really had to like break it down to like what we were shooting in a week. Like so, like the first, the budget was a tier one, so 6 million. In Little Rock, and my big thing was like I'm really big on like I like to carry some big guns because I just have my philosophy of lighting. Like it's always harder to make a smaller unit bigger. You just can't. You know what I mean? And then you start to feel the source. So like I had to like really work with the AD, figure out the schedule to make production because I wanted to carry two 18Ks for a good bit of the show. But I kind of broke down all the scenes like based on like what we were doing schedule wise. So I carried two 18Ks for the first 3 weeks, 5 weeks of shooting, and then they got returned after that. So like doing things like that, kind of playing the game of like when you know how the day play stuff. But I think part of that game is too, is like you need to work, like you kind of got to show the rental house that like you're working with them too. Because sometimes whatever rental house will just end up being like, dude, just keep it for the whole time because we see that you're trying to make it work. And the last thing a rental house wants to do, especially to like a gaffer and a DP or a key grip, is like we're not going to give you the tools that you need. And I think this comes down to just kind of a respect for it, because like I would talk to the rental house and be like, look, I know the producer, the LP is like, we can't afford this. So here's what I'm thinking. We'll carry for these days, blah, blah, blah. And then that's kind of how we made it work. And I think, I don't know if I answered the question. Did that help?
Sure. Well, that brings me to another thing. We'll get back to that. I was more thinking like, what were you doing kind of on, were there any, obviously that one of the easy answers is just like, oh, we shot at golden hour, stuff that with what you had looks way more high budget than it is.
Yeah, you know,
Or
I
shots that
mean,
maybe came out and you were like, that looks incredible. I'm shocked that we got away with that one.
yeah, I mean, we had to do certain things. Like, I don't know if you remember in the script, there's like a part where like they're both like our two leads are on a hill and they're talking, and there's like the sun right behind them. Like,
Yep.
dude, like that was like me, my camera assistant, and like my DIT, and second, it's like throwing all the camera gear into my car and racing to this location. And Chad, the director, and the two actors in his car, and like literally just like hop out the car. Actors get like both to Jonah and Zoe. I'm like, go right here, slap the camera on, and let's go. So we had several moments like that in the film. And I think, but there's also something about like there's some beauty to that because like you're just in the moment. And what was really cool about this film was like we were kind of a big family. So like every weekend, like I'm a big cook. So me and the camera team lived in a house together, and the whole cast and everyone would come over and we'd hang out. So like being able to have that kind of bond relationship with the actors helped a lot because like they kind of saw they knew what they were doing. So we were kind of like a Formula One team, just like boom, 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 let's go. And it was just like happening. It wasn't like confusion. People were like, okay, we're down for the cause. And so that happened a lot, which was, and you get beautiful moments from that. And like, yeah, those certain situations, like, yeah, you just like we lucked out. I remember when we turned around, like that sun is in the perfect spot. I was like, this is the take. I was like, the next take, that shit is gonna be gone.
Yeah. No one fuck up.
So, and like, I think no matter what your budget is, you're always racing that stuff. Like, there's nothing that can control the sun in that situation. So, um, I think with that, and then like I think also like for me, like the day one of our shoot, I kind of like I brought like the first scene we did was when Zoe is like trying to put the baby crib together. And there's a lot of people that would be like, oh, we'll just like I knew the sun was on that side of the building anyways, but I was like, no, I want to control this. And like I was trying to set a precedent of like how I'm gonna light this. So like the first shot, like I'll like get the 18K up, like we're going to blast it through here. I was like, and I have like a really rich like look. It just has like if I didn't have the 18K, it would just been soft light hitting the curtains and like there's just been no punch to it. And I think we there's too much of that. I think that's why a lot of movies end up looking kind of the same or kind of just like too natural and kind of flat. I think you want to try to. It's funny. A lot of people are like, oh, like natural means soft. I'm like, no, dude, hard light exists in the real world. So like, while you can add hard and soft, I think it's actually important to have like that dynamic look in your scene. But yeah,
I just had this idea the other day because we all have Artemis or whatever, Pocket AC, all these apps, the Sunseeker. I want one that will give you EL zones so that you can go around, and if you see good natural light, obviously, if people take a picture of it, but nowadays, if you're on your cell phone, like there's way too much post-processing that the phone does.
Yeah.
So the photo doesn't work. You need like a regular camera to do it. But I want an app that just does ELs. I should talk to Ed about this. I am gonna Ed app. I know a guy who knows Ed. Okay. I want an app that just so if you see good light, you can take a photo and it'll show you the EL zones so that when you're recreating it, like you can reference the photo you took and be like, oh, okay, that actually needs to be hotter,
So you kind of know what the base is there too. Like, you'll be on a scout and you're like, okay, like what is this right now that's naturally like what is this falling naturally at?
Right.
I do feel like you kind of get it. I mean, I've gotten to the point now my eyes starting to get a little trimming. It's pretty trained to that. Like I kind of walk into like a setting, I'm like, okay, I kind of know if like we're gonna be able to handle this or we're gonna need to bring in a lot of firepower to make this work or like this will work with what's going on. And I think it's hard because like, I like the idea that because you kind of need to see like, okay, this is what has like what happens is like the day you show up, it's now overcast. You know what I mean? Like, and that's a hard thing to deal. Like day exteriors are, I think, every DP's nightmare because like there's only so much you can do. You know what I mean? And like sometimes you're just gonna be like, well, because I don't think everyone like, especially on a budget like this, I don't have the luxury of like waiting out days. I just have to go with it. Like an example of like the hospital. The hospital is probably one of the most stressful things I've had to deal with because,
I bet.
well, originally I want like we were going to have like that was on the dirt floor of a real working hospital. So we're using condors to get our lights up. And I remember on the week we're shooting, the first day, I wake up that morning and it was just raining and overcast. We originally wanted to be bright and sunny. I was like, well, that's not going to happen. Because, I'm looking out the windows and like you have all that depth and like I can't change that. So I remember calling the gaffer and key grip on the way and I was like, dude, we're going to have to flip the lighting scheme. I was like, we're not going to put any lights in the bucket. You're going to put a 20 by ultra up there and we're going to put the 18 on the ground. We're going to shelf bounce this.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's going to fall into the look better. But so we're like we're shooting 2 days like that for this one scene. And then on day 2, I'm like start to freak out and I'm like looking and I just start to see the sun break out. I'm like, oh fuck. And I'm like, I go up to the director, I'm like, and the AD, I'm like, hey dude, we need to shoot everything towards the window as fast as possible. And given this is a scene with 9 principals in it, and I'm like, it's just not a good scenario. Like I didn't have any good option to bring to them other than like, we need to shoot fast. And they're like, well, if we don't get in time, what do we have to do? I was like, we're going to have to reshoot everything else that we've done because the sun's going to break and it's going to dramatically different. So like that was a real stressful situation. Yeah, that was not fun. Those are things I think like DPs just dread. And it's like hard to like explain that, I feel like sometimes, you know what I mean? Because people were like, well, why don't you just fix it? I'm like, well, not the easiest fix because like it's either kind of like sky replacement, which I always feel kind of looks a little wacky. But yeah, so that was not a fun one. But we got through it, thank God.
That brings up a few things, but I did want to bring up something I was thinking about earlier, which is when you are having discussions with the producers and specifically the line producer, is your aim like that maybe you're over budget, and not just with this film, I mean in general, like maybe that production's gonna be over budget or whatever, are you is your instinct to suggest things that are budget conscious, or do you just shoot for these are all the things I want and or need, and then it's up to them to tell you no? Or because I imagine like there's a fear there that maybe if you ask for too much, they'll be like, this guy's fucking difficult or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of need every job's a little different. You kind of need to read the line producer a little bit. On that film, I think you always should kind of reach for the stars first. You know what I mean? Because I don't think you should shortchange yourself out the gate because you never know. They might just say yes. Yeah. So, because I've been victim of that where like, especially coming up to music videos, like music videos were like, we have to be so concise about everything. And I remember this one commercial producer told me, he's like, hey man, I see your order is kind of light. Why is it so light? And I was like, well, I'm just trying to be conservative. He's like, look, dude. He's like, and this is a little more commercial, like commercials are a little different. He's like, hey man, I know this client and they're going to throw curveballs. I want to make sure you are like equipped to be able to handle that. That was like a light bulb that like went off for me. I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. This was like really early in my career. And I was like, okay. So I think you need to be able to bring a little, like, you need to protect yourself a little bit. I think you also need, like you said, you also need to be mindful that you shouldn't be like, I knew what the budget of our film was. I mean, I think that's through experience. You got to show like you have that experience and understand like you are playing ball at the same time. Because the last thing I want to do is have a terrible relationship with the line producer or just like production in general. Like I want them on my side. So yeah, and, the biggest thing is like I tell them like, look, this is going to be like my ideal package. and then let me know if we need to go to work on it after we get our first quote in. And that's what we did. And that's what ended up, based on what I said earlier, like we figured out how to day play what we needed based on my schedule. And I think, for me, like I have to put in that work because like no one else is going to know better than me, like where I need this stuff. So, put in the work. Be like, here's where we can do all this, or this is what we need the gear. This is when it could go back. And I think if you work like that, one, they'll respect you for that, and they're seeing that you're actually putting your best foot forward to make it work. Because I know people that are like, okay, this is all I need, just make it happen. That's fine. But like, I also know producers got to do their job. Like we're all there for the same reason. So I think you just part of it, you need to play nice, be understandable. Because the last thing you want to do is order a bunch of shit that you end up not using, and then you're just like burning money. Because then like a producer will. I worked with one producer. He would walk around and it's like, oh, I see the 412 KZ order not doing shit right now. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. Okay,
not right now.
Yeah, but it's like the age old case is like when you don't have it for some reason you need it, but when you do have it you don't use it. It's just something that happens. I don't know what it is, but that's how it always falls. And so you try to meet in the middle with that.
I certainly have run into the issue of like if the director will be like, do we need whatever this extra, do we need this extra grip, or do we need, do you think we're going to need this? My knee-jerk reaction is to go, no, I'll do it. Because I worked low budget for so long that I'm like, I can handle it. And then my buddy will come around and be like, hey, you should have said yes. Like, fuck. Like,
yeah.
You needed the help, just ask for the help.
Yeah, that's the thing. And like I said, just don't cut yourself short. Just like so they might just be like, yeah, sure, you can have all that. It's like, oh, okay, great. So I think, you just, like I said, have a conversation with them, make sure that they hear you and that you're hearing them. Because I think one way I approach producers too is like, whenever I'm trying to sell them on something that I need, I do it from like their perspective. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, if I had this techno crane, actually, we'll get through the day faster because I can get the camera where I need in seconds. Versus like, if you don't have it, like an example is I remember I did a video for Billie Eilish called Lovely, and they originally wanted me to do that on like a static crane on a dolly. And I just remember like when we scouted, I was like, guys, the amount of coordination it's going to take. Like, you need someone pushing a dolly, and then you need someone on the arm. Like, it's going to be two separate moving parts. I was like, we will lose time trying to do these intricate moves that way. I was like, a techno crane will be much faster. I was like, I know it's more expensive, but I was like, we will get buried if we try to do it this way. And that was a little bit of an uphill battle, but I remember the producer coming up to me at the end of that. I was like, "Oh, you were absolutely right," because like we barely made it just with the techno crane. You know what I mean? I was like, if we did it all the way, I was like, we would still be here for another 6 hours.
Right.
And, that overtime just on a whole crew would be astronomical compared to the cost difference on the techno crane. So I think you just got to be able to approach it from that standpoint of like, how can you save time with this? That's what a producer wants to hear. So that's like how I work in a sense. When I need something for sure, I'm like, okay, how do I convince a producer? It saves time.
Yeah. So save. Was like we were saying earlier, time, money used to be the most important. Now it's time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to, because we're post South by now, right? I assume you went?
Yeah. Went.
How was that experience?
It was great. The crowd reaction they brought down the house, which was, it's always like a scary thing. Just like, I wonder if this is going to respond well. It's also like, I don't know, I'm one of those people too. I have a hard time watching my own work because I'm just like sitting there. I'm like, oh my God, like I could have fixed that. I could have fixed this. Are they seeing it? And like, no, I'm like realizing like no one fucking knows. I'm like, no one has a clue what I'm even like freaking out about right now. Except maybe my comrades. Like,
right.
But yeah, it went really well. It was nice. It actually revitalized the idea of like that. Like, I hope it gets into a theater because like I don't think you'll have the same reaction shooting or watching that movie by yourself or just with someone else, like in your living room. Like it was great feeling the audience just react that way together. Yeah, it was really good. It was special. I quite enjoyed the screening. I had a great time.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. Like watching it myself, you can tell, especially that first scene, but also just as the messiness continues, that is something that, yeah, you and your partner or whoever, maybe your friends watching it at home, might be able to go like, but when you're in a big room full of all these unique experiences, even if you're not looking at each other, you can feel that in the room. And there's so many opportunities in this film for unique experiences to kind of conflagrate and create one vibe. And it's funny too, which everyone likes that. But
yeah, it's definitely probably leaning a little more. He's leaning a little more dramedy in a sense for sure than rom-com. But yeah, all the talent great. Yeah, it's an interesting movie to shoot because I've never shot a movie. I've never done a rom-com like that, and just I've never done anything in that like world. So it was definitely like a departure from like every DP we try to like lean dark. So he does. I mean, Chad took me on my wheelhouse, like you know, like his references. The first thing he sent me, he was like, "Watch Broadcast News" and When Harry Met Sally.
Broadcast News is good. Obviously, everyone's seen When Harry Met Sally, but if you haven't, Broadcast News is sick.
Yeah, and I think Broadcast News kind of also set up a lot of like, I think especially for the actors, like that dynamic between the two of them. Because like Zoe's very like, I mean, she's kind of the queen of like the modern day rom-com now, but like this is definitely a little bit of a departure from what she usually does. Like she's the messier girl, a little just like got more bite to her, and kind of reminds me of just like Holly Hunter in Broadcast News, but like.
Sure.
It's funny, like when Ham and Sally is like really interesting because I remember rewatching that movie like photographed beautifully. Like, dude, like the park scenes and like just the color of that. I was like, that would be really influential for me. Like, I mean, basically what I ended up doing was like it's when Harry Met Sally made a Baby Silverline's playbook and then picks up Annie all in the way. Like a lot of the blocking was really highly influenced by like a lot of Woody Allen films, just like how they would move through. I don't know if you might have picked up on this. I did a lot of like the way we would block it, like they would start like in a wide shot and then like come up into a close up, or they'd just be moving through the space rather than us doing a lot of coverage, which was really nice. And
that's
the actors are really cool.
too. Yeah, over covering stuff is for suckers.
But like this genre can easily fall into that really quick. A lot of the modern day rom-coms fall into that pocket really fast. So Chad and I really worked hard on that. It's great to have actors that were really willing and embracing that. So yeah, that was fun. I'd say that's actually where the Ronin became really handy. Like there's a lot of shots on there like that me and the operator would not be able to contort our bodies around the dolly to do that stuff. Or like we would have, but you probably have felt like that misstep or like that jerk trying to like get your body around. So that helped a lot. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you did a great fucking job, bud. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm gonna let you go because it's getting late. But yeah, thanks so much for rescheduling me first of all, but taking the time to chat and stuff, man.
Dude, and thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course.
Gotta thank Ernie. Ernie kind of set this up.
You know what's funny actually is I interviewed Ernie for This Is America years ago, and then we did an episode of this podcast, and we spent an hour and a half just pontificating and not talking. I think it was for 9 minutes, and we didn't talk about it. And then I was like, hey, let's like take this back up, and then we'll just talk about the movie, and then I'll splice them together. And we never did. So I guess now I'm gonna have to have him back on, and I'll just cut the two together, and it'll be like, what do the conversations 2 years apart sound like?
Oh, that's hilarious.
Give it a little brutalist intermission and be like, all right, grab some water, and now 2 years later, what do they talk about?
That'd be amazing.
But yeah, he's the man. So I'm glad he got us in touch. And yeah, stay in touch, man. I'll get you on the old internet.
Definitely, man. Let me know what you think of the rest of this film. I'm curious how you feel about the ending.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like I got
Oh yeah, you said
I was only jumping by like 5-minute chunks, so I was getting like plot points, but I'm definitely gonna finish it and get the emotional experience of it. I just wanted to make sure you didn't mention something. Oh yeah, I just wanted to make sure you didn't mention something where I was like,
Yeah.
But like I said, you're the first one to ever give me a screener from any of these festivals anyway, so it's progress.
I'm shocked. I'm glad we were able to break that cycle for you off. So maybe hopefully in the future they can send it to you.
Yeah, I'll be like, if they could do it,
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, get some dinner or something. I'll talk.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Later, buddy. Frame and Reference is an Albot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.